In the words of the late George Carlin, BS is the glue that binds us together as a nation. Here comes a ton of it. It's time for BSing with Big Nate.
Are you sick and tired of using those cheap, smelly blue masks? They always seem to break, and no matter what you try to do and fix it, it just doesn't work. Plus, they look horrendous, and they never fit quite right.
There's gotta be a better mask!
Now there is! Introducing the new limited edition 105.3 The Bear Mask. This 2-ply eco-friendly face cover is washable and reusable. And the best part about the new 105.3 The Bear Mask is that 100% of the proceeds benefit the Southwest Virginia COVID-19 Response Force. Get your new limited edition 105.3 The Bear Mask today.
Welcome into another edition of BSing with Big Nate. This one is a special one. This one's going to be a fun one. It's Father's Day, ladies and gentlemen. And if you haven't realized it yet, you might want to make some phone calls to your dad. I, of course, am being joined today by my dad because it's Father's Day. Seemed like the appropriate thing to do. So without further ado, I'm joined by Jerry Pops Danger. Dad, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you, son.
Yeah, it's been a while. Happy Father's Day.
Thank you. And happy, your first Father's Day. So happy Father's Day to you, too.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So with these, we usually do an artist profile. I have a musician on. We'll talk about their music and their foundation. So I thought it would be fun today to, I probably wouldn't be doing what I was doing without you. So I thought it would be fun to profile you on this edition. So we're going to start this off like this. Probably without my dad, I wouldn't be working in radio. I certainly wouldn't be sitting here doing BSing with Big Nate because my dad was a big part of my musical foundation, a big part of me listening to radio. We used to go on road trips, and he got me a bunch of cassettes. It was Smithsonian old-time radio classics, and definitely a foundation for my love of radio was listening to these old radio serials. And I'm certain, I don't know if Dad was enjoying it as much as I was, but it definitely created or sparked that bug in me. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to talk a bit about that. We're going to talk about the influences of rock and roll on my life as well, because Dad was a big supporter and we went to a lot of concerts together. So I want to start like this, Dad. What was your first album?
First album? It's hard to even say. It was probably, honestly, okay. So it probably was, this is embarrassing. It was probably Sean Cassidy put out an album. I liked him because when I was probably 10 years old, and I liked reading the Hardy Boys books, and they made a Hardy Boys TV show, and Sean Cassidy played Joe Hardy, and Parker Stevenson played Frank Hardy. Anyway, about that time, Sean Cassidy became a teen heartthrob, and he did a cover of the Do Run Run, and he put out an album. And embarrassingly, I was probably 10, 11 years old, and I bought that. Actually, I could dig it out. I wonder if I still have it. I'm guessing that was probably my first album.
Would it have been vinyl or 8-track?
No, it was vinyl. I never in my life have owned an 8-track, actually. My mom and dad did. So your grandma and grandpa owned them. They remember the Columbia House 8-track tape club. And boy, did they have terrible musical taste. Captain and Tennille, Jim Croce, that kind of stuff.
So I use a fake name with a online food ordering service. Weirdly enough, anytime I have to call and do my order or confirm my order, or there's an issue with the pickup, they're always like, "What's your name?" And then I forget. But my speaking of terrible music taste, my fake name for and I'm outing myself here, is Captain Tennille. So there's this one Chinese restaurant in the area that I go to, and this kid runs the front desk, and it always gives them a chuckle. "Oh, you're Captain." Yep, that's my rank. I always have great fun with that. So we're gonna flip from first album to first concert.
Oh, that was Billy Squier and Foreigner during the Foreigner 4 tour, Charleston Civic Center, 1981. A friend of mine's mom took us. We were in junior high. I don't remember exactly, probably like 8th grade or something like that. And the thing I remember the most about it was, so it was our first concert. His mom took us. Somebody near us, as people do at rock concerts, lit up a joint. And his mom, I remember, went and told the usher, and she said, "There's that person is smoking here, and I don't think it's a cigarette."
Oh man, narking people out at the Foreigner concert.
The usher didn't do anything.
Huh. I mean, yeah, what are you really gonna do in a crowd that large? All right. So, by that token, what is the best concert you've seen live? Because I'm certain it wasn't Foreigner.
It definitely wasn't. I'd have to say I've seen a lot of good concerts. I'd probably have to say that time you and I went to see Motorhead in Charlotte. I don't know if it was like 2011 or something like that, with Valiant Thor, Clutch, and was there anybody else on that bill? I don't remember if there's anyone else, but I remember they opened. That was probably the best one that I've been to.
It was Motorhead, Valiant Thor, Clutch. Was Anthrax not on the bill? I can't. I just remember Motorhead and Valiant Thor. And honestly, I love Clutch, but they did not stand out at that one to me.
No, compared to Valiant Thor.
Yeah,
they put on a pretty sedated stage show compared to Valiant Thor.
Clutch is one of those ones that you kind of have to be going specifically to see Clutch.
Yeah,
because
that's probably the best one, I'd say.
I put that up there. It's definitely in my top 5. It doesn't come up as number 1. I think number 1 for me is either going to be that time we saw Rob Zombie at the 930 Club. I don't know if you remember that one, but he starts walking over the bar and everything. It's either going to be that one or when we saw Lamb of God, In Flames, and Slayer at the Fillmore up in Silver Spring. Was it the Fillmore?
Yeah.
I knew it was Silver Spring. That to me still stands out because, that was actually how I discovered In Flames, and I've been a big fan since. I think Death Heaven was on the bill as well.
Death Haven, yeah.
That was a hell of a night.
Yeah, most of the concerts that I've been to, I've enjoyed. But probably Motorhead. I've seen Slayer a bunch of times. They're always good. Another one that stood out was when I went to see my brother and I went to the last motorboat cruise featuring Motorhead, and they had it was a 5-day cruise, and they had pretty much concerts constantly, and there was a set that Hatebreed did on the pool deck, and we were on the periphery of some hurricane, so it started absolutely pouring the rain, and there were people moshing in the pool, and it was around Halloween, so people were dressed in costumes and stuff, and they were just out there, and it was just that was the best show of that whole cruise, and that one always stood out to me, particularly because of the whole atmosphere and the fact that we were going through a hurricane. And that guy Jose Mangan from Sirius XM, he was on the cruise as like an MC, and he was there. And as soon as it started raining, he ran over and got out of cover because I think he was afraid all of his hair gel was going to melt or something. That always stuck out of my mind.
We can always take shots at him. He's an intriguing individual. What was the last show you saw? Of course, obviously, not a whole lot of shows going on in 2020. What was the last show you saw?
When you and I went to see Power Trip, and I don't even remember what it was in DC. It was May of 2019, I think, or maybe it was 2009. Everything's blurring together for me with this whole pandemic, but it was probably May of 2019, I think. We saw them, and Red Death opened, and I had not heard of Red Death before then, but I really liked them. they're now one of my favorite bands. Power Trip's one of my favorite bands. So that was the last one.
Power Trip always puts on a fantastic show, and anyone who's not heard them needs to go check them out. Fine group of guys out of Texas. It's I mean, what would you call them? They're not necessarily thrash, but they.
I mean, their category's a lot as thrash, but they're more like sort of like crossover thrash, but not really. I don't even know if they're. I mean, I don't know if you liked. There's a lot of different bands if you liked. I think you would like them. I think if you liked Motorhead, I think if you liked Slayer, I mean, I don't know, just hard rock and. Well, it's more than rock and roll. It's definitely metal. I'd say crossover thrash is probably the best comparison. I think they're influenced a lot by hardcore music, but they play a more metal style to it.
Yeah.
But if you read about
I'd say that's really accurate.
But what was it, Nightmare Logic, that album that came out, I think in 2017, is one of the best albums that I've ever heard. It was, to me, I listened to it and it was like an instant classic, which doesn't happen too often.
It also, I mean, granted, it's only been 3 years since it. It's definitely got a feeling to where it's not necessarily like, you know, if you go back and listen to the hair bands, oh, obviously 80s. If you listen to grunge, oh, obviously 90s. It doesn't really have that like pigeonholed feeling. And I think we're moving away from that with music, which is nice because,
yeah,
I mean, going back and listening, some of that 80s stuff I can't do. And so it's kind of nice to have like a record like that. And I think you're right. I think it's I put it in my top 10 for the decade. I think it really will hold up and stand the test of time.
So I don't know if you remember, we saw Power Trip, and I'd never heard them, but they opened for Lamb of God. It's Silver Spring one of the times we went. I don't remember which one. And like their bass player, I think their bass player or one of the guitar players had quit, and so their drummer, Chris Ulsh, was over that day playing like he slipped over to guitar, and they had a local DC kid come up and play drums for them that show, and the drummer actually is in 2 DC. So through that, I also discovered 2 DC bands that I like, which is Genocide Pact, which is a death metal band, and then Red Death, which is more like Power Trip, which is a sort of a crossover thrash kind of punk band. So it's kind of neat to see that whole sort of circle of, I like going to shows and then discovering new bands. When we saw Power Trip for Lamb of God, and I'd never heard of them, I remember the song Crossbreaker really stood out from that show. They really had the crowd going on that one. They put a lot, like as you said, they put on a good show. So I think I've seen them 3 times.
There's a lot, yeah. I've seen them twice, the Lamb of God time, and then the time we specifically went to see them, and they do put on a fantastic show. And yeah, I mean, it's the same thing for me. I've gotten introduced to a lot of bands that exact same way, and I think a lot of it is just going out to shows, which we haven't had the opportunity to in a long time. Like you said, you're looking at May. I'm looking at, I think it was late October, early November when went to see Slayer, Ministry, and Primus. So have you been finding new music during all of this? And if so, how?
I'm trying to think. So I bought a bunch. So I've used this time to like rejuvenate or to get back into buying vinyl records again. I'd gotten back into it about 2 or 3 years ago, and then went on a short period where I had bought a bunch, and then I wasn't doing it so much, but I've been using this period of time to start my record collection again. So I'm trying to think if I thought of any new bands. I bought a lot of albums, a lot of new music, but I don't know. I'm trying to think if there was any new bands. I mean, honestly, one thing that I've been doing is I subscribed to Amazon Unlimited Music, and every week they send you a playlist based off what you played and what you listened to of suggested music, and I listen to that, and I periodically find bands through that that are at least, it may not be new bands, but they're new to me. That actually works pretty good. So I don't know that I have any real good finds this year that I can think of as far as new bands.
But you have been obviously buying vinyl and stuff. So what are the last 3 records you've gotten?
Let's see. The Lamb of God's new one came Friday. So I got that on vinyl. I got, right before that was The Sword, which is one of my favorite bands, also from Texas. They put out like a 3-album like anthology called Kingdom of Conquest. So that one came. And the one before that, it's been a bunch. I'm trying to remember the order that they came in. Probably, yeah, I'm trying to remember the order. Probably Abysmal Dawn, newest album, but that's actually probably my favorite album of the year so far.
All right, Abysmal Dawn's good. Have you listened to the Lamb of God one yet?
Let's do it twice on Friday.
How do you feel it holds up? Because I haven't listened to it yet. I kind of got busy and haven't had a chance to listen to it yet. How do you feel it holds up in comparison to some of their past material?
I mean, you listen to it, you can tell it's Lamb of God for sure. My reaction was it's solid. There was no song that like, though in the 2 listens that like grabbed me and said, this is an outstanding track. Every once in a while, albums, I have to listen to them a few times to kind of appreciate everything that's on them and all, but solid effort. It didn't penetrate. I always kind of keep like every year a running top 4 albums, and it so far hasn't penetrated the top 4 album list for sure, but it's definitely Lamb of God, definitely solid. I didn't feel they were treading any new ground, and I haven't had a chance to really dive into the lyrics yet. I know Randy Bly was, from what I read and everything, getting I don't know, use the word political, but I guess political on this one. So kind of interested to hear his take on things.
I mean, there's always kind of been an element of that, particularly in their live show.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it doesn't surprise me. I've been excited to listen to it, and I'm sucked that it came out the time it did because I've been so busy. But it's definitely one that I've been looking forward to. Of course, Mushroom had a new album drop on Friday as well. So those have been my 2 most recent pickups. Haven't listened to either of them yet. I have gone back and earlier this year, and I don't know how I missed it. Wednesday 13 re-released all of his early albums, the Warner years. And I don't know if he remastered them or what, or if it's just like listening to it now in 2020. That stuff still holds up.
Yeah, his older stuff particularly is really good.
He's also working on a cover of INXS's The Devil Inside.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I'm intrigued to see what he does with that.
Be interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely kind of out of left field. So, crap. This happens occasionally when I haven't had my coffee. Okay, so we go from Lamb of God, we go from the albums you've bought to what you're looking forward to in 2020. What records on the horizon are you looking forward to?
Let's see. Well, I think Hatebreed's, a lot of the release dates have been pushed back, so it's kind of hard to keep track of it all. Like Lamb of God's was supposed to originally come out like a month ago or something, and they had to push it back. I think it's because of the ability to produce, because of COVID, the vinyl and the CDs. So I think Hatebreed's got one coming out, so I'm looking forward to that. Who else? Shoot, there's one that's I'm looking forward to it so much I can't remember it. It'll come to me in a few minutes. There's another one that I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, it has been tricky to track, and it makes it. It's one of those things to me like I understand why it's played out this way, but we've seen a lot of albums end up getting delayed, the tours getting delayed, and it's been the tours I get, the albums theoretically could be released digitally. I get why they're not, because if it's all released digitally, nobody's going to buy physical hard copies, which is an intriguing note on the Lamb of God one, because you were talking about the resurgence of vinyl and collecting vinyl again, which is something that I've started to do as well. I guess for me, it's not really collecting vinyl again. It's collecting vinyl. But cassettes have made a resurgence for some reason.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I don't get that.
Lamb of God I saw on Friday was out on cassette. I'm like, it might be kind of a step in the wrong direction. Like, what's next? 8 tracks?
Yeah, reel to reel, maybe.
Well, hey, I actually have access. We still have a machine sitting in storage at the station, a reel-to-reel machine, and I don't know if it turns on, but it'd be a good opportunity to go fix it.
So I just remembered another one I'm looking for. I actually have already pre-ordered it. A band called the Death Wheelers has an album coming out in September, and they're from Canada, I think, Montreal area, and it's just all instrumentals. But if anyone that likes Motorhead would like these guys, it's kind of that style. It's like hard rock and roll. I had got their first album a couple years ago. It was one of my top albums that year, and so they got one coming out in September. So that's another one that, like I said, I've actually ordered it, and it's supposed to come out sometime in September. So I'm looking forward to that one for sure.
So I've got to ask, what advice would you have for a father whose son comes to them and says, hey, I want to be a rock DJ?
What advice would I have?
Yeah.
Well, it depends on where they're at in their life. Like if they're going to college, I would say get involved in college radio. That seems like the biggest opportunity that there is. I believe it's all volunteer, but you get great experience. Other advice I would have, but this is more from knowing a little bit about your experiences. I would say make sure that you don't just worry about being a DJ. You got to be able to do all the other stuff affiliated with running a station, running the technology and the production and all that kind of stuff. And so that you can be very versatile, because I think it's from what I can tell, it's a fairly tough business. And so it's probably not like it was back when I was a kid, where the DJs DJ'd and didn't really do anything else. There's probably a lot of other stuff to it, I think. And so I'd say, make sure you're well versed in all the aspects of running a radio station. And like I said, I think the number one thing would be when you're in school, to volunteer for the college radio station and get good experience doing that, if that's really what you want to do.
I can tell you for a fact that's exactly what he told me. And here we are. Thank you so much for joining me, Dad, on this edition of BS with Big Nate. Happy Father's Day. Ladies and gentlemen, the man who taught me everything I know about exterior home illumination, Jerry Pops Danger.
Thank you. Enjoyed it. Love you.
Love you too.
Are you sick and tired of using those cheap, smelly blue masks? They always seem to break, and no matter what you try to do and fix it, it just doesn't work. Plus, they look horrendous, and they never fit quite right.
There's gotta be a better mask!
Now there is! Introducing the new limited edition 105.3 The Bear Mask. This 2-ply eco-friendly face cover is washable and reusable. And the best part about the new 105.3 The Bear Mask is that 100% of the proceeds benefit the Southwest Virginia COVID-19 Response Force. Get your new limited edition 105.3 The Bear Mask today.